Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
I don't think we have any news this week.
No, we're back though.
Yes, we're back after a week off, and yay, work and such.
That's the spirit.
I know, right? But if we haven't got any news, we should probably get some food.
Fast food?
We can get some fast food if you like.
From Lucky Boy?
Oh, I was thinking In-N-Out Burger or Big Kahuna Burger or...
Good Burger? Home of the Good Burger?
Oh, no, it's too much. Okay, we'll go to Lucky Boy instead. Yes, that's right. That was our terrible lead-in to Hungary. Directed by Kim Manners, written by Vince Gilligan, and first broadcast on the 21st of November 1999. Guest stars. We've got Chase Hampton, who was Donald Panklow, who was the first victim.
Okay.
He who was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Alright.
And Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Huh.
Chad Donnella is Rob Roberts, who was in Castle, The Long Kiss Goodnight. Very appropriately for us, Final Destination.
Oh, yeah, he was like the
Second to
best
die?
friend, second to die in the first film,
Well,
yeah.
Second to die after all the people on the plane died. Or was he? No, he was first to die, actually, wasn't he? Because he died before the teacher. So he was the second... Because everyone on the plane died, and then he dies in the bathroom.
Spoil a 20-year-old movie, yeah, he's the one who gets strangled in the bathroom at the start.
Yeah, the most overtly supernatural of the deaths.
Yep.
And Saw 3D.
Yeah, he's the detective in Saw 3D.
Okay, so for weird ones I hadn't realised before, but looking at it now, okay, it's very much, how did I not notice this before?
Mm.
So Mark Pellegrino played Derwent Spinks.
Okay.
He was technically in Lost World Jurassic Park, but in a deleted scene.
Okay.
But you've seen him argue about a rug.
Is it one that really ties the room together?
It is one that really ties the room together. Now, as far as I remember, he is not the one who pees on Lebowski's rug. He's the other guy.
Okay.
But he is in that scene.
That's neat. I thought I recognised him.
Yeah. He was also in number 23.
Okay.
And will show up in the upcoming Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, which is the what are you doing?
We're really making another one?
Apparently we are.
Fair enough.
I'm assuming Eddie Murphy's in it, but Eddie Murphy's heyday has long since passed.
What about Judge Reinhold?
Well, he never really had a heyday, did he? If we're going to be brutally honest about the man.
That poor guy.
I know. But there's a reason why he's in Clerks, isn't there?
True.
Though he was also did voice in Far Cry 5, and somewhat hilariously, he was in Anthem. But for ones that really blew me away, so Judith Horig plays Dr. Mindy Reinhardt. She was in, or she's been in two of them, but she was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh.
April O'Neil.
Oh.
Would never have thought in a million years.
As a voice or as a person?
As a this is live action one.
Oh,
the
the
first live action one.
Mm.
She was April O'Neil.
Oh, that's neat.
She was also in Armageddon and Salt.
Oh.
But for you, A Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake. Okay, and last we have Lois Faraka, who played Sylvia Jassy, who was in Dirty Harry.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Gremlins, The Exorcist 3, Child's Play 3, and Third Rock from the Sun.
Oh, neat. So, have you got a synopsis of Hungary?
I do. From Wikipedia. In Costa Mesa, California, a young man named Donald Panklow approaches the drive-thru of a Lucky Boy fast food restaurant. Despite the restaurant being closed, Panko angrily demands service. The fast food attendant eventually tells the man to drive to the next window, where he is attacked and violently pulled out of his car. Panko's body is later discovered with the brain removed from the skull. Mulder and Scully are assigned to assist the local police in their investigation. The only clue they have found at the scene is a Lucky Boy employee button. Mulder and Scully check all the employees and discover that one of the clerks, Derwent Spinks, is missing his. Scully suspects Spinks after it was discovered he has a criminal record. Mulder, however, believes that the victim's brain was removed by a proboscis and suspects another employee, but he does not make clear which one. This would be Rob Roberts, who is in fact a mutant human who wears a disguise to hide his true physical body and subsists on brains in order to survive. When Rob's landlady, Sylvia Jassy, is told by a private investigator, Rob kills him and eats his brain in order to placate his hunger, which begins to get more and more uncontrollable. Spinks visits Rob in his home the next day, annoyed at being fired from Lucky Boy for lying about his criminal record. He confronts Rob with evidence of his role in Panko's murder, a vial of Rob's diet pills with a bloody fingerprint on the lid, and attempts to blackmail him. Later that day, Rob intrudes Spinks' residence to retrieve his pills, but hides in a closet when Spinks returns. Spinks notices someone is in his house, and when he confronts Rob, Rob removes his disguise and reveals his true self to stun Spinks before killing him. Rob later meets with Mindy Reinhardt, a counselor hired by Lucky Boy to consult the employees following Panko's killing. In his session with her, Rob admits he has an eating disorder. Reinhardt sends him to an Overeaters Anonymous meeting, not fully understanding Rob's true nature. Rob is visited by Mulder and Scully about Spinks' disappearance. Mulder then reveals the detail about Panko's missing brain and a tiny shark's tooth, which was discovered by Scully embedded in his skull. At the Overeater Anonymous meeting, Rob sees Sylvia, but does not respond well to the meeting. The pair, however, bond on the trip home, but unfortunately Rob's hunger is far too overpowering and he is reluctantly compelled to feed upon Sylvia. To cover up her murder, Rob disposes of her body and smashes up his own apartment with Spinks' baseball bat. He tells Mulder and Scully that Spinks showed up and accused him of being the killer. Mulder then asks Rob if he recognizes Kiziak, the private investigator, but Rob says no. Reinhardt shows up to find Rob packing his things intent on leaving town. After a bitter argument with Reinhardt revealing that she knew Rob murdered Panko, he reveals his true self to Reinhardt. However, before Rob attacks her, she shows deep sympathy for him, throwing Rob off guard. At that moment, Mulder and Scully arrive with guns drawn, having found Sylvia's body. Reinhardt tells Rob to be the good person she knows he is capable of being, but instead Rob judges that Mulder is shot twice in the chest. As Rob lies dying, Reinhardt asks why, to which he replies, "I can't be something I'm not."
Thank you.
Mulder's a bit of a jerk in this, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. Then again, he was a bit of a jerk in terms of endearment as well.
It's true. I mean, I think in this one, though, you kind of feel a bit more for Rob, given that Mulder is being, I don't know, really manipulative, because he's cottons on to Rob so early on, and he's figured it all out, and he's just toying with him, he's kind of like Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, playing with his food before he dives in for the kill.
Yeah, it's unclear when Mulder's so sure that Rob is the villain from the start that he doesn't move faster. Because, 3 people die because Mulder does not move on this.
Yeah, and I think it's weird. This is actually a weird script, I think, if you look at it. I know it's Vince Gilligan, and Vince Gilligan only came from Series 2. This is kind of Series 1 Mulder where he's so blasé about all this. As you said, 3 people have died while Mulder is messing around.
Yeah.
I think Scully's actually checked out of this episode. She's not in as many scenes as Mulder. And then the scenes she's in, she doesn't say a lot.
Yeah, true. It's because both of them were filming other projects at the time, apparently, so they wanted to design an episode that would have as little of the two of them in as possible. Because I think it was combined, they could only get them for 2 days of filming.
And that shows. I mean, I think the other thing to note is that when I looked at the things that we're filming instead of this, I don't know what those are.
I've never heard of them either.
Well, it's always one of these you can never tell, can you, at the time? But still, it's ironic that those things have sunk without traces.
Yeah. So the resultant is we've kind of been a bit clever and flipped the script. So we've got an episode that is essentially if we had something like Toombs from the perspective of Eugene Victor Toombs.
Yeah, the Rob is a lot more sympathetic than Toombs is.
Yeah, the idea was supposed to be, from what I read, there was a comment about how Vince Gilligan's motivation was he wanted to get to that final scene where Mulder and Scully would leap in and bust him, but have the audience hoping that they wouldn't.
I can see that. I think they more or less got there.
Yeah.
I think the comparison to Wayne is interesting from Terms of Endearment, as in this is someone who's possibly more racked with guilt, because Wayne kind of didn't want to do what he was doing, but he had sort of made peace with having to do it, whereas Rob does not want to do this.
He's got this kind of biological imperative to eat brains, but really just wants to be a normal person.
Yeah, and he's trying to satiate it with other things like this ruined meat and diet pills and all these other sort of the self-motivation tapes and everything.
Yeah.
And nothing's working. He just can't do anything about his ravenous hunger.
So ultimately he is a very tragic character.
Yes. The thing I got wrong on memory was I thought he deliberately framed Durwood Spinks, but it doesn't look... Well, he kind of does, but not in the way I thought he would. I sort of remember the scene where basically it turned out neither of them had the button, and sort of they were all sent to go and get it or something, and Rob somehow got hold of Spinks before him or something.
Oh, I see. So you thought that he framed him a lot earlier than he actually does.
Yeah, and I know he does do it later, but it's not... I think that's one of the sort of vagaries of the script, is it's not clear why he would think to steal that button back. Where did he realise he'd lost it in the car and then went and stole it? I mean, we have to imagine that's what he did.
Mm.
But of all the people to do it, the ex-con who's got it in for you anyway.
It's either that he's just picked up a spare from somewhere. There's nothing to really suggest he's taken it from Durwood.
Yeah, and I suppose that's actually one of the sort of kind of problem bits, isn't it? There must be a stockpile or a box of these somewhere where in case of new employees hired on, you get the badge for that day of the week.
Yeah, and he maybe just realised he'd misplaced his, Not even maybe realising he'd left it in the vehicle.
Yeah. I kind of like the whole weird cult-like thing of Lucky Boy where literally every employee has it in their pocket except Durwood.
Yeah. Mind you, Durwood is the level of employee of, doesn't he say he dips his lads in the coleslaw or something like that?
Yeah, yes, it's a terrible job. What the hell are you doing? Your manager actually seems like a nice person.
I saw an interesting argument for the characterisation of Rob Roberts, which you can kind of see in hindsight because it was written by Vince Gilligan, of this is the proto-Walter White.
I can see that.
You know, it's another series where we essentially focus on the villain and try to make him likeable to decreasing degrees of success with Walter White.
Yeah, pushed into doing the unpleasant thing to survive.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's the later stuff, that's a more complicated thing. But yeah, I can see it as a prototype. One thing I would criticize Vince Gilligan for in this one is this psychiatrist who is kind of baffling.
Yeah.
I mean, first session with her, that's fine. That's just a psychiatrist giving him advice of going to an Overeaters Anonymous place. It's when she turns up at his apartment and then she's got this whole faith in him and that she figured out he killed Panko, and you're going, who are you? We've seen you for one scene and you've just turned up.
That's the bit I remembered differently, because in my head she was just his psychiatrist. I didn't remember the fact that she'd just been appointed, like, literally that day.
Yeah, I think if it had been a longer term thing, that would have gelled better. And I think we also said when we were watching it, it's like if this was his girlfriend or something,
Yeah.
this would all flow a lot better.
You've gone down this kind of... It's almost a young adult, though, in the days before young adult literature, the tortured monster trope. You know, you've got your, I'm a sparkly vampire, my life is so terrible, I'm forced to drink blood, God, I'm a monster, sort of mentality that in YA fiction, you know, girls flock to these kind of haunted monsters.
Yeah. I mean, would you say that it works for Rob? Because to me, Rob looks a bit too nerdy, a bit too greasy to really get the same effect as Edward Cullen. He's not that heartthrob in the same way, is he?
Yeah, and you've got the fact that his monstrous form is monstrous as well. It's not just, look at me, I sparkle like diamonds in the sunlight, aren't I a monster? I mean, literally, he's wearing fake ears and dentures tied his shark's teeth and things like that.
Well, and also has fully black eyes, no hair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those. It's good special effects though when he takes it all off, because that's actually pretty seamlessly done.
Yeah, X-Files has had some fairly good special effects, like the Gel Nana corpses and things like that. But this is next level. This is probably the best prosthesis they've had in the series.
Yeah, and I also like it's done for jokes, like when he's in the psychiatrist's office and his ear just comes off and he's got a cover for that.
Yeah.
That's nice. And like, I can't help but think as well that he's got a bald head, and I always think of the witches, because there's that whole thing with the witches have scalp itch because they wear wigs over their bald
Roald
heads.
Dahl's witches.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to question his biology as well, because it's another one of these weird things where he doesn't have a tongue, he's got a proboscis. So how's he talking normally and things like that? But also the fact that Mulder found his tiny shark's teeth in the wound, and if he's kind of sucking the brain out with a proboscis, why is the tooth getting in the wound?
Well, I can imagine it's to punch us through the skull,
But isn't that the proboscis? You see him stab the private eye, I think.
Yeah.
Or possibly Durwood Spinks.
You definitely seem to do it to Spinks. I think you kind of get a very, very quick one of the private eye.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a little bit odd.
Mm. Well, that private eye, by the way, that's David Duchovny's stunt double.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, we've seen him once before playing a regular character in Too Shy. I should have mentioned this at the start, really, when you said that.
That's fine.
And he's also going to play a Mulder lookalike in Fight Club as well.
Ah. Shame that we've lost Shemenish Yappy, who was his stand-in rather than the stunt double. Rob does carry the episode quite well. I mean, it's just a few days in the life of a monster trying to pass for human.
With really, really black comedy. I love the bit when he's at Overeaters Anonymous and they get him up on stage and he's talking about the experience of what we know in the audience as eating brains. And then he starts fantasizing and kind of looks at the back of the bald-headed man in front of him and it's taking the shape of a brain.
Yeah. That's pretty awful. And I also like the tragedy of, he's, found this new connection with Sylvia. We're not sure if she's his landlady or she's just another tenant.
I thought landlady.
But it's not actually clear. But the fact they sort of get on really well and they're sort of joking and having a nice conversation on the way home, And then his stomach gurgles and he's got to just go turn around, knock on the door, and just murder her, flat out.
It's possibly the thing in the episode that makes him the least sympathetic is him murdering Sylvia.
Yeah, you could have made a bit more effort, but I suppose it's the whole compulsion taking over and you can't sort of stop to think.
And it really is the final act that pushes him over the edge when he decides that this is it, it's hopeless.
Yeah. And yeah, it makes the sensible decision to leave town, but a bit too late for that. We do got to wonder if he's eaten, well, presumably he hasn't eaten any brains up to this point, and this is like the first time he's been, utterly compelled or since he got here.
Yeah. I always find it interesting to look at what the critics thought at the time about the episodes. This one was mostly positive, I'd say, but the criticisms of the episode I thought were a bit weird because the primary thing that kept coming up was people complaining that you find out who the killer is right at the start, which is kind of the entire point of the structure of the episode.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you could probably recognise Rob's voice to figure out it's him, like, right from the word go.
Yeah.
And the episode doesn't actually hide it, because even for the monstrous reveal, he's doing a lot of weird things like, being overly concerned with what Mulder and Scully are looking at.
I can see it as an overarching criticism of the X-Files because it usually isn't very good at hiding who the villain is, even when it's trying to.
No, but then I'd say that's not what the X-Files is here for in the same way, is it?
No.
I mean, certainly if the person responsible is human, it's not a murder mystery.
No. It's even when you're looking at the likes of Alpha, where you could certainly pick out who the werewolf was right from the beginning. Yeah. So yeah, personally, it's one of the rare times I've disagreed with Paula Vitaris, in fact, looking at these reviews from Cinefantastique, is I don't really think that's a problem in this episode, knowing that Rob's the killer.
No, I mean, it's fine. I mean, otherwise, it doesn't become very tragic, really, unless you're...
No, I think you'd have a hard time empathising with him if it was a twist that it was revealed who was the villain, because it would make him an entirely unreliable narrator for the entire thing.
Yeah. I don't think they've really got the time and space to do that very well.
No.
You could do, but you need a longer runtime and you need more things going on.
I think your example would be, I'm not sure you've ever watched it, but the horror movie Creep.
I've seen most of it, Creep, I think.
Well, in Creep, the entire point is, it's a first-person movie. It's basically a found footage movie, but the protagonist is a cinematographer who's been hired to record what's supposedly a dying man's message for his son. And you can tell from the beginning there is something off with this supposed dying man. But it kind of builds your expectations because you're wondering if he's just a bit kind of isolated and weird or if he is actually sinister for the entire thing. And it does keep you guessing pretty much to the end of the film.
Okay.
So I guess that's how you do it effectively with making a character that is initially sympathetic, but your loyalties to him change as the movie progresses.
Yeah. I think one of the things is it's not exactly a complicated or intense episode, is it? It's actually fairly brisk.
Yeah, there's nothing, even though it's actually quite a violent episode, it's not grisly, it's not really intense, it's just a kind of nice character piece.
Yeah, I would say it's not Vince Gilligan's strongest episode to date.
No, but it does show what Vince Gilligan excels at, which is writing believable, likeable characters.
Yeah. On the list of Vince Gilligan's things, it's not the worst, and it's not the best, but it's comfortable middle. It's another decent episode.
I think it had a decent, strong ending as well. The ending of the episode was one of its more memorable bits.
Yeah.
When Rob's cornered, he has opportunity to kill the psychiatrist, but hesitates, but then commits suicide by cop, because really at this stage it's his only way out.
Yeah.
It's a very, very dark, very bittersweet ending to it.
At least we don't have Rob Bowman popping up and saying, "So the psychiatrist is the true villain of the piece." Never going to be over this one.
Never going to forgive Rob Bowman.
Never going to do it. It's just, what are you on, man?
For more information on that, check back on the episode where we reviewed Trevor.
Anyway, if we have nothing else...
Yeah, let's head to New Year's celebrations.
Well, I was going to say, let's party like it's 1999.
Literally, yeah.
Literally.
Wouldn't it have been better if we managed to line this up better with the new year?
Yeah, but there's a lot of time into getting this one. So, Millennium. Directed by Thomas J. Wright, written by Vince Gilligan and Frank Spotnitz, first broadcast on the 28th of November 1999. A little bit off on their timeline as well, so I don't think we're too bad. Guest stars. The incomparable. My God, this man has been in some terrible films. Lance Henriksen as Frank Black. Whoa!
I'd like to note he improves terrible films.
Okay, but he's still been in some god-awful films. So, one that I didn't actually remember at all is he is in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Was he?
Apparently so. I will have to rewatch it and try and spot him. I do not know who he is or
I
where
don't
he is.
remember him being in it.
No, but he's in there. Damien in The Omen 2.
Indeed he is, yep.
First one, which kind of brought him to attention, is Terminator. And for those who don't know, he was meant to be the Terminator for a time before Arnold was cast instead.
Was he really?
Yeah, when it would be a very different Terminator. He'd been more like Robert Patrick.
Yeah, I was thinking he's very similar to the T-1000.
Yeah, he'd be lurking in sort of alleyways in the shadows kind of thing. Of course, on the back of Terminator, we get Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien vs. Predator.
Where he played Bishop.
And Mr. Wayland for Alien vs. Predator, who is based on, well, Bishop Android is based on Mr. Wayland, so yeah. Slightly decreasing quality there. Pumpkinhead.
I think he's in at least one of the sequels.
He's
as
in
well.
2 of the sequels, in Ash Joshes and Blood Feud. I don't think he's in Blood Feud much, but he's definitely
He's definitely not in the second one, but I think he... Yeah, you're right. He's in 3 and 4.
Yeah, he was in Pumpkinhead 2, which has got almost nothing to do with the first one. Super Mario Brothers, which everyone forgets.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Scream 3, The Mangler 2, Mimic 3. Do you see where I'm going with this?
I've seen all these films.
Hellraiser Hellworld.
That's 8, I think, for the record.
Alone in the Dark 2. The film no one remembers exists, except us. But we can't remember what happens.
I've seen it about 10 times and I still can't tell you what happens in it.
It's set in Central Park, and that's as far as my knowledge goes.
And has a witch in it.
I don't even know that bit.
Yeah, see, I love my low-budget horror movies, but that's the one I can never remember.
Screamers, The Hunting.
Yep.
This one took me by surprise, because it's a cameo, is Jennifer's Body.
I don't remember him being in that either.
Apparently a passing motorist or something, so I don't know what scene that is, but he's kind of blink and miss it, but he's in there.
Okay.
He was, of course, and the reason why this episode exists, in Millennium, Chris Carter's other series.
As Frank Black.
Yeah. He was also in Chris Carter's other series, Harsh Realm. Well, I should probably sit down to watch Harsh Realm at some point. It's just the fact I know it died so fast and everyone was so excited for it.
Yeah.
Hannibal. I don't remember him either, but apparently he was in Hannibal.
No, I can't remember him being in that.
One that really took me by surprise, well, the next few were by surprise, Legend of Korra.
Who does he voice?
No one you'd recognise, no one I recognise, but he's in the cast.
Oh, fair enough.
Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3.
Did he voice anyone in particular?
He plays like one of Shepard's sort of military contacts, and I just never noticed in a million years it's Lance Henriksen. And The Quarry, which I think is a bit more obvious.
Oh yeah, he's actually mocapped in The Quarry, so you can tell it's him.
Okay, so we also have the person who possibly hitched himself to the wrong director is Holmes Osborne, who played Mark Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
So he was in The Box.
Oh gosh.
But before, he was also in House MD. Before The Box, he was in Southland Tales, which is probably worse than The Box, but it's a very close run.
If this is the character I'm thinking, I'm pretty sure he's in Donnie Darko too.
Get into that one.
Okay.
He's in Anchorman. He was in Malcolm in the Middle. He was in Identity. He was in Frasier.
Okay.
Star Trek Enterprise. And yes, he was the father in Donnie Darko.
Mm.
So he was in all of Richard Kelly's films,
Kelly's, yeah.
with his bizarre downward trajectory on quality.
They're all worth watching.
Yeah, okay, but 2 of them only worth watching once.
Yeah.
Do you want to watch Southland Tales over again?
Donnie Darko is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
The first half of The Box is great. And Southland Tales just needs to be watched.
It's an experience, but not one you want to repeat.
No, but everyone's got to see it once.
That's true. We also have Brittany Triplady, who played Jordan Black, who was in Millennium.
As you would expect.
As you said, being Frank Black's daughter. Colby French is the deputy, who does a whole lot of different things, like Grosse Point Blank.
Huh.
Bruce Almighty, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, American Horror Story Roanoke.
Okay.
And Better Call Saul.
Ah.
Just a one-off in that one. But one of the ones who, of course it's her looking at her, is Octavia Spencer plays Nurse Octavia. She was in Never Been Kissed.
Okay.
She was also in Being John Malkovich, and I can remember exactly who she is in Being John Malkovich, because she's got a very strange but pivotal role.
Okay.
She was in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Legally Blonde 2, Pulse, Drag Me to Hell,
Okay.
Halloween 2, the Rob Zombie one,
Oh.
Zootopia.
Ah.
Hidden Figures, Shape of Water. She was in the most recent version of The Witches, Malcolm in the Middle, and last but kind of least, Marilyn McIntyre was the widow at the start.
Okay, yeah.
So she was in The Ring 2.
Oh, The Ring.
The Ring 2. The one with the deer fixation.
Yeah, I remember.
And Dark Skies.
Okay.
It keeps happening.
Yeah.
So would you like to give us a rundown on the events of the Millennium?
I mean, I'll try.
Well, I think we'll get into that in a minute, what the problems with this are.
Again, heavily ad-libbed from Wikipedia. Our episode this time opens in Tallahassee, Florida. The date is December the 21st, 1999, and we find ourselves in a memorial service for a former FBI agent named Raymond Crouch, who has recently killed himself. His widow is approached by a man, who we later learn is called Mark Johnson, who claims to have worked with her husband. Johnson hangs around after the other mourners have left, and returns to the funeral parlour. He strips the corpse and dons his clothes, and places a cell phone inside the coffin. A week later, we see that Johnson is sat outside in the cemetery in the rain, monitoring Crouch's grave when his phone rings. He gets out of his car and approaches the grave holding a shovel. Mulder and Scully are later called to investigate when it is found that Crouch's grave has been robbed. They notice immediately that there has been damage done to the inside of the casket, looking suspiciously like something has tried to claw its way out from the inside. However, Scully believes that this might have been staged. Skinner informs them that Crouch is one of 4 former FBI agents, all of whom committed suicide and all of whom have since been exhumed. Mulder notices that there is a circle of what turns out to be goat's blood encircling the grave, and therefore believes that it is actually an act of necromancy. Skinner also tells the agents that they should investigate Crouch's possible ties with the Millennium Group, a slightly shady organisation which has recently dissolved. Mulder and Scully visit a mental institution in Woodbridge, Virginia, where they meet with Frank Black, who is the protagonist from the Millennium TV series. They question Black about the Millennium Group, but Black refuses to help them. He believes that any further involvement, or even giving any information away about the group, may hinder his attempts at getting custody of his daughter Jordan back. Black does, however, give them a cryptic clue, which initially seems to relate to football scores, but actually eventually points Mulder in the direction of a specific Bible verse. It's taken from the Book of Revelations and kind of infers that what the Millennium Group intend to do is kind of bring around the apocalypse by creating their own 4 horsemen. Hence the 4 FBI agents. We also see Johnson getting a flat tyre in his big truck. A deputy parks up next to him and tries to help, but discovers flies buzzing around the back of the truck and becomes suspicious. When he investigates, he is attacked by a reanimated Crouch, who brutally rips the guy apart. Johnson survives only because he sprinkles a circle of salt on the ground around himself. The deputy's body is quickly found, although it has been desecrated by Johnson in such a way to seemingly stop it from reanimating. Realising that an autopsy is going to be done on the body, Mulder instructs Scully to prevent it. Scully is too late. The mortician has already been killed by the deputy, and she herself is attacked by the zombie. She's only saved mysteriously by Johnson, who arrives and shoots the deputy before leaving again. The 2 agents therefore put their effort into finding Johnson before it is too late. Mulder manages to track him down to his isolated compound. Mulder breaks into Johnson's house and eventually finds himself locked in the basement. He's attacked by the 4 zombie FBI agents who are all also locked in there, though he does manage to shoot and kill one of them. Soon after, Frank Black shows up at the house and approaches Johnson, who's overjoyed to have him there, as Frank was apparently always intended to be one of these 4 horsemen, and is now needed because Mulder has killed one of the zombies. Frank, however, betrays Johnson and ties him up. He races to the basement to save Mulder, killing 2 of the zombies. However, his gun then runs out of bullets, and the final zombie corners both him and Mulder. Luckily, Scully arrives in the brink of time and shoots the final zombie in the head, saving both men and ruining the Millennium Group's plans. Frank returns to hospital and arranges to have himself discharged. Scully advises to inform Frank that he has a visitor and brings in his daughter Jordan. Frank chooses to leave with her just as the big shiny ball in Times Square begins to drop to signal in the Millennium. Mulder and Scully watch this on Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve on television. As the clock reaches 0 and the crowd sings Auld Lang Syne, Mulder and Scully kiss, ringing in the new year. You know, this episode actually has a really weird nexus.
Yeah, I was briefly looking over the notes, but for all the listeners.
Well, the original intention, with apparently Stephen King at the helm as well, is they wanted to write an X-Files episode that was like a remake of the classic Romero movie Night of the Living Dead.
You can certainly see how that's kind of borne out.
It's always been something apparently that Vince Gilligan in particular really wanted, was to bring zombies into the X-Files. And the original idea to do it was this telling, which had both Romero and Stephen King on board, and sounded quite exciting. You even have that line, Mulder says something in the basement about how shooting him in the head seems to do it, which is almost verbatim a line that's said in Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we've got Millennium goo in here.
Yeah. And even it must admit that Lance Hendrickson was really dissatisfied. This, of course, is after Millennium was cancelled and kind of ended on a cliffhanger, so this was the way they just wanted to kind of give it a wrapped-up ending.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, we have to get to watch Millennium at some point, obviously, because this doesn't make a lot of sense. I do get the impression that no one was happy with this episode.
No, there's a quote from Lance Hendrickson where he said something like, "It's a satisfactory X-Files episode, but this isn't Millennium."
No, and by the same token, it's really weird to have... I understand that they wanted to resolve this because they couldn't do it in Millennium itself, and they're taking the opportunity they've got. I mean, we will see this repeated again in 2 seasons' time, bizarrely.
Oh, for the one that wraps up the Lone Gunman.
Yeah. And I can only imagine what the experience is of trying to watch either episode in isolation without seeing the surrounding series. Because there's definitely an expectation that, as much as they try to bring you up to speed, there's an expectation you know a lot more about these characters than you're provided with.
I get the impression you should at least have an idea of who Frank Black is, that whatever the hell's gone on with his daughter, and vaguely who the Millennium Group are.
Yeah, and they don't really... They do try to explain it, but really badly, and you at some point you want to say, Sir, Skinner, what are you doing?
I don't know if it's a bearing on the series either, but this whole Millennium Group plan to bring about the apocalypse just seems really cheesy and ham-fisted. Because you're even using things like he keeps repeating that line from the Bible that Jesus says when he resurrects Lazarus.
Yeah. And I think it's okay as a sting, but the fact he does it all the time, it sort of starts to diminish its impact.
Yeah, you have that, and you have a similar line about someone rising from the Book of Revelations as well, which are just two really... I mean, if you're going to pick a Bible verse, those two are a bit on the nose.
Just a tad.
Mm.
It feels odd that they're sort of taking it, the Christian thing that literally and everything, or...
It seems a bit weird to even make your own four horsemen when they're supposed to be like forces of nature.
Well, also, I suppose that's a little bit where it breaks down really thematically, is you don't get a sense that each zombie represents the concept. They are just 4 FBI people who don't, like, no one has a legacy of being, constantly getting into fights and arguments and, guns blazing in raids or something.
I think you've got your difference, and I don't know exactly how it works in the TV series because I haven't watched it, but in the Book of Good Omens, the way it introduces the 4 horsemen, and they are all introduced as kind of essentially monsters in human form to begin with, because you have the reporter that's instigating conflicts on the war front for war and things like that. But then over the course of the book, they become less human and more kind of supernatural as it goes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of inferred that, I'm trying to remember what the 4 horsemen are, like pestilence is something kind of fluid and flowing.
Well, no, pestilence is retired, pollution took over.
But increasingly they become kind of more fluid and flowing and kind of unnatural.
Yeah.
And famine becoming more skeletal and kind of monstrous. Yeah. But that's your idea, these are kind of how we've reimagined what the 4 horsemen, your death, famine, pestilence and war.
Yeah, or pollution instead of pestilence.
Or pollution instead of pestilence in this case. You're imagining these kind of biblical concepts into a real world, modern kind of ideal.
Yeah.
And not just 4 FBI agents who have shot themselves.
And not just zombies as well. I think that's also a critical problem with it, is that they have no powers. I think they are just zombies.
And they're monstery zombies. They're not smart zombies or anything like that.
I mean, it's interesting to read on the notes that Millennium was cancelled after they'd filmed the end of Series 3, so they didn't know that they didn't have an opportunity. And as much as this is meant to be a sort of tie-up, it's really difficult to get any sort of closure other than Frank's got his daughter back. I mean, we wondered if she'd ever appeared in the series, and it turns out, yeah, she's in most of the episodes.
Yeah, I looked it up. She is in all 3 seasons.
But as someone who's coming in cold, you can't get any grasp of that.
You don't really get a good impression of what Frank Black's about, because as far as I'm aware, that he's a kind of consulting detective.
He has some form of ability, because I remember that one of the trailers for Millennium coming out is basically they are carrying a body and he sort of reaches out to it and sort of gives a diagnosis of the state of the body.
Yeah.
And someone comments, "Oh, man with the X-ray eyes," because he hasn't taken the sheet away.
As far as I'm aware, I don't know how it works, I'm basing this on what I read on Wikipedia, he has the ability to see through a killer's eyes.
Okay.
So that might be what you were inferring there with his X-ray eyes.
It could have been. I mean,
again, I can only go with what I read briefly on Wikipedia without trying to spoil the series for myself.
Yes, and I took it upon myself to watch one episode and skip through one episode of Millennium. And the one I watched properly was Jose Chung from Outer Space.
It should be noticed that this technically is the second X-Files crossover as well.
Quite so, given he's in both of them. So that was Jose Chung's Doomsday Defense. Which I got the gist of it, but there's an awful lot of expectations of knowing who Frank Black is, who some of the secondary cast are.
Yeah.
But mostly I was there to watch Charles Riley do his thing.
Yeah.
And he does do his thing. It's great.
I'm really looking forward to that.
It's such a shame of how it ends.
Yeah.
And then again, the actor also has passed away, so, we don't get any more Jose Chung anyway.
Yeah. It's such a shame because in the X-Files revival a few years back, it would have been nice to have got Jose Chung back.
It would have. Unfortunately, I think he was long passed away by then, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I do think, though, this makes the episode very hard to talk about because, and I think this is reinforcing my plan for The Lone Gunman of we're going to have to watch it between series 8 and 9 because talking about Jump the Shark without that context is basically impossible.
Yeah, I remember the first time around I watched Jump the Shark without having seen Lone Gunman, and it doesn't make any sense without it.
No. And it does bring into question, I mean, it's kind of weirdly more topical now because we have, although people seem to have been exhausted by it, it's like the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
And how I don't think Marvel anywhere near as complicated as this, because Marvel as a concept is generally easy to pick up what you've missed. Because I think we skipped out on a few films here and there, and it's sort of you can basically glide along without too much trouble.
I haven't watched many of the TV series, and I think I've still got the gist.
I was going to bring back to the whole. I also have lost my patience with this, given that we sat down and watched 2 TV series because apparently they're going to be critical going forward.
It should be noted that 2 were WandaVision and Loki.
Yeah, and basically, Loki looks like it's going to be relevant to the 3rd Deadpool film.
Okay.
Based on the trailer.
All right.
Just because the Time and Space Authority people are in it.
Okay, fair enough.
So, but we weren't told that bit, so never mind. But WandaVision apparently was critical to watching the 2nd Doctor Strange film, which I did not enjoy at all, except for one sequence at the end, which I thought was absolutely hysterical. Because, yes, I've possessed my own corpse. Brilliant. This is amazing. So, what up from a Sam Raimi film? Excellent.
Yep.
No notes. Rest of the film, no. But we watched WandaVision to understand it, and that was a lie. We didn't need to watch WandaVision for any of it.
Yeah.
It was very frustrating. But in terms of the crossovers, it's one of these things where I'm sure it felt like a good idea at the time. And in certain areas of TV, I imagine it was probably a done thing because you were probably watching both series. We don't know who Frank Black is. We don't really care what he's doing. And he's self-committed to a mental asylum he then checks out of at the end.
And even though it does kind of hold together and make sense in isolation, you just have that sense of something's off and this is a character. It's almost like you're thinking, well, if I'd come into the series at this point, I'd assume that Frank Black was a reoccurring character in the series. He's got that air of we should know more about him. Yeah,
well, actually, that's the way I was going to typify it. You remember 80s sitcoms? The guest star comes in and the audience goes mad.
Yeah.
And applause. That's how Frank Black is introduced in this episode, that the audience is meant to go, woo, and start applauding because they recognise who it is.
See, I was thinking it in terms of the season of Buffy where it introduces Dawn.
Yeah.
Because when I first saw that as a teenager when it first came out, the first episode that Dawn was in, I got really confused and thought, have I missed something? Because there's this character and it's Buffy's sister and we're all talking about her. It's like, who the hell is this person?
Me, and everyone else.
Which is the entire point of the series, it ultimately turns out, is you're not supposed to know who Dawn is.
Yes.
But that's the kind of feeling I had here as well. It's like, we've got this character and everyone seems to know who they are except for you.
I've got an even better one then. So basically what he's saying is that Frank Black is Mini Moose. He's been here the whole time.
He's been with us the entire time. Yeah, it very much is Mini Moose.
And if that reference goes over your head, this is Invader Zim, where one of the absolute final episodes they ever produced introduced a character called Mini Moose, who the assistant was there the entire time. The idea was actually, if they kept on making episodes, was to clumsily splice him into flashbacks.
Yeah, that's cute.
So it'd just be awkwardly inserted into various shots.
But the joke being, of course, that Mini Moose has not appeared in any episode before that point.
No, but he is afterwards, though, because Enter the Floorboards does have Mini Moose in it.
Yep.
And he's absolutely intrinsic to the plot, hilariously. I do wonder about this as well, because we sort of mentioned way back for Red Museum that it was meant to be that crossover with Picket Fences.
Yes.
And the Picket Fences side of this crossover still has lingering after effects of how it was meant to connect to the X-Files, whereas the X-Files side has been scrubbed of the contrary entries. At a certain point in time, it probably made sense to do this, but at this point in time, it's a case of that feels like homework to watch a TV episode.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a good idea. It's not a good idea.
It's probably the kind of thing that would have worked better in this day and age when we have everything on streaming and you can easily get hold of that other series.
At the same time, though, you have to watch 3 series of Millennium to actually make sense of this.
Yeah.
I mean, the other one you could point to then, Buffy, is that Buffy and Angel were intertwined. And that actually did get kind of annoying even with how they did it. Because, like, people would vanish off into Angel for a bit and come back again.
You've probably got a similar idea as well with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And the 2 series are connected, and really you're better off watching Breaking Bad first and then Saul. Because even though you could watch Saul in isolation, there are bits that you just wouldn't get or wouldn't have the same impact to you.
Yeah, but they're not crossovers in the same way, though, because it's
more a spin-off.
Yeah, and that, I don't think that's not bad. I mean, you go back to a fairly early stage, Frasier is a spin-off of Cheers, for example, and someone made the point of that of, when you watch Frasier, you don't have to know anything about Cheers.
I think there are maybe 3 episodes where Cheers characters have cameos, and that's about it.
Well, so they made the point, they actually made the specific point of the Cheers cast except Lilith and Freddie, because they operate slightly differently to the rest of them.
Yeah.
Because they show up slightly more often, and they are explicitly introduced as part of Frasier's backstory rather than the Cheers cast.
Yeah. But at the same time, Frasier also changes integral parts of Lilith's relationship with him.
Yeah.
So it's, even if you've watched Cheers, it's still not exactly the same.
Exactly. But there's no obligation to know anything about Cheers to enjoy Frasier.
No.
And that's fine. But like this episode of Millennium, if you don't know who Frank Black is, this stops making sense fast.
You see, we are trying to avoid talking about it.
Well, I said to you beforehand, it's the difficulty of knowing how to talk about something which is so tied up with concluding a different series.
It just feels clumsy as well, because even kind of framing this all around an X-Files investigation, we focus so much on Mark Johnson and Frank Black that we don't get a lot of Mulder and Scully actually investigating. They just kind of have clues thrown at them.
Yeah, and Mulder, as usual, jumping to sort of some... Oh, he's ultimately right, as usual, but for the worst reasons. And I think that was another point I had, was that we made a point in Hammer Fati and Sixth Extension of we don't know how Scully's going to address anything she's found out going forward. Because this should shake so many of her certainties to the core. And we haven't had a chance really to see her go at normal operations, or at least this is actually the first time we've seen her in a normal context after that. And you've just given Scully an encounter with a zombie, and she just kind of shrugs that off as well.
I think she's a lot more accepting, we can see now, because when Mulder says, hell, you've got to stop that autopsy, that guy is actually a zombie, Scully doesn't blink, she rushes to stop this autopsy.
Yeah.
Whereas at one time she would have said, Mulder, can you hear yourself?
At the same time, though, she feels like she gets away with encountering a zombie a bit too easily.
Mark Johnson just kind of teleports in there to save her life for some reason.
I don't get that either. That's weird. Why does he care?
Mm.
Other than we've written Scully into a corner.
Because he kills the zombie. It's not even that he's trying to, corral it up. Because if he had been intending to corral it, he wouldn't have buried the guy in the woods in the first place.
Yeah, it's all very, very perplexing.
It's purely because you've put Scully in this situation where she will otherwise die, and we need to Deus Ex Machina her out of it.
Yeah, I don't like that very much. Also, you've got to say that, okay, so this was the Millennium Group's plan. We're not actually aware of who the Millennium Group are or how big their organization are, but it feels so low-key and so non-world threatening for it to be one guy in this compound somewhere with 4 zombies in his basement. You want it like the end of Ghostbusters. You want a big ritual on top of a building kind of thing. You know, or like cauldrons and candles and like loads of people chanting. Like, as bad as it is, the end of Revenge of the Sith. What was the third Star Wars with the Rey in it? Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of the Skywalker.
Yeah, like all those Sith people who just vanish without a trace. Like you want a scene like that for the end of the world, not this basement somewhere in Virginia. It just feels too low key, doesn't it?
Well, I guess if we're going for apocalyptic things, The Omen is the king of all apocalypse movies, and just all the kind of satanic imagery in that.
Yeah.
You know, trying to exhume the corpse of Damien's biological mother and finding a dog in the grave. You know, this kind of weird imagery.
Yeah. And it feels a bit like, I don't know, it feels very low budget TV making, which I know it is. But when you say I've made the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, they are these zombies, and they're just 4 people in a cellar. Yeah, it's like, this isn't scary. Yeah, and I don't understand how were they going to suddenly become impressive or something if the clock had ticked over?
Classic zombies just aren't scary anymore, though. You have to do things to try and make them intense, like the rage virus in 28 Days Later or the clickers in The Last of Us. You know, kind of playing with the formula to make them frightening.
Yes. So, yeah, that doubly doesn't work here. And I also don't get things like Mulder should probably know that shooting them in the head will kill them, and he only managed to do that for 1 zombie.
Mulder is very well versed in runes written with goat's blood and circles of salt, but not shoot them in the head. It's the way you kill every zombie in everything ever.
He's never watched John Romero, apparently. George Romero, not John Romero.
George Romero.
George Romero. John Romero made Doom, even. Yeah.
You got there eventually.
I got there eventually. Do you have anything else for this one? I mean, it's just kind of... Bleh.
You should probably talk about the kiss. We've finally got the canonical kiss.
So, Scholar Shippers, you won. They've filmed, I don't know how many at this point, and cut all of them except Triangle, because there's been at least 2 previously, I think. There's definitely been a few kisses that have been shot.
There's been a few head kisses.
But there are actual lip
ones
kisses.
like the one in the movie where they almost kiss, and then Mulder is cockblocked by a bee.
Yeah, but I seem to remember there were other instances where they did, and that was cut and redone or something. So this is the first one that's made it in.
Oh, Triangle.
Triangle has got the asterisk next to it, given that's not technically
parallel world Scully.
Yeah, well, also time
and possibly a dream.
Possibly a dream. Who knows? I'm sure the fans liked it.
Oh yeah, the general consensus, and I would agree, is that they don't make it steamy or sexy. It feels very natural.
Yeah, I can go with that. At the same time, though, it feels kind of perfunctory in the spur of the moment and with no implications going forward at all.
That was a big criticism at the time, is the fact that there's no build-up. It's just kind of thrown in there as fan service.
Yeah, and I'm aware that that's enough for people. I
think there'd be a time when you could do it, like maybe Redux would have been a better time for it, when he's almost lost Scully. The film
would have worked fine where they were going to do it.
Yeah. Even I go for the end of the Unnatural. I think the end of the Unnatural is beautiful when he takes it to the batting range.
That would have worked better.
Yeah, that would have been a nicer point, because it's a more romantic scene, it's more personal.
Yeah. I mean, the double-edged sword of this is that because they've done it especially as a New Year's thing, that actually diminishes the impact and makes it more likely you can then have you just a bit awkward around each other and you just pretend it never happened.
Yeah.
With your co-worker. And, we're never going to talk about it. Nothing more will happen.
Or if it was really, really unwanted, it would be the sexual harassment suit the next day. Straight to HR.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's amazing that Scully hasn't done that already. But yeah, I'm fully aware that some people this is catnip. For me personally, it has all those problems. It's a case of there have been better occasions for this, there have been better build-ups. Where Mulder and Scully are in their relationship at this stage is so foggy, given you've had Six Extinction 1 and 2, which kind of imply there's a relationship there, though Mulder's still got Dream married to Fowley, so that has really...
Even at the very end of the Sixth Extinction Part 2 would have been a better point for the kiss, to be honest.
Yeah, when she meets him in his apartment.
Or even when she finds him in the facility.
Yeah.
Because it's, again, a moment where she's almost lost him.
Yeah. It feels like it's the worst timing, doesn't it? And...
I'm not averse to it. We know we've been building to it for some time. But I do think that we could have made more of it.
Yeah. And it's one of these things where we will have to actually pay more careful attention to them going forward. I know there are bits and pieces people like to read into from here on out. Nothing totally concrete, but there are lingering implications. There's some later reveals that they're definitely going to sort of pull on to make things work.
Yeah.
Scolder, people, enjoy it if you will. I mean, I'm sorry, Skinner and Scully is just not going to happen soon.
I'm playing the smallest violin for myself now.
Okay. Don't worry, you'll get one more bit. We know there's one more bit coming for you. This season.
It can't just be me, right? This has got to be a core of the fandom.
I'll go actually look. I'll check what the actual
think that. Please do let me know on Twitter. Does anyone agree with me that Skinner and Scully are the better couple?
You're gonna get one more hint of this. We know there's one more.
I do know, based on things I've seen our followers on Twitter put on fanfiction, that Scully and Kryjik has quite a following.
Yeah, I don't get that one.
No, it's not to my taste either, but I've definitely seen fanfics to that effect.
Personally, and I realise I deviate from the norm a lot by just being male and into these conversations. But I kind of like my characters to interact a little bit more in the actual show, and Scully and Kryjik have met perhaps twice.
I don't actually read fanfiction myself, but it's always interesting when I see these coming up on our Twitter feeds, just to see the kind of things that people write.
But it's been twice, hasn't it? It's like they've exchanged maybe 10 words over that time frame. I don't know. I mean, there's nothing against it, but generally I like them to have a bit more camaraderie first.
I think it's nice. Scully and Skinner have a lot in common. Skinner's cute, so it all works well.
Well, unless we have anything else, I think we possibly drank a bit too much of this New Year's party. We should probably go have a lie down.
Sounds good to me.
In the dark.
So what are our next episodes? Gonna guess that one of them will be Rush?
One of them is indeed Rush. The other one is the Goldberg variation.
Oh, that's a nice one.
It is a good one. Well, I like the Goldberg variation. Starring a young Shia LaBeouf.
Is that who the kid is?
That's who the kid is.
Oh, wow. I look forward to seeing that next time, then.
It's great when you find, the people who've become very famous, just like bit parts of the X-Files, like Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
What the hell happened?
Look out for that when we watch it.
In the meantime, if you'd like to get hold of us, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
Alternatively, you can get us on social media, and please do let me know if there's anything you'd like us to promote at the start of the show, be it conventions, fan events, anything else you've got on the go at the moment. You can find us on Twitter and Tumblr at GetStrange42. We're on Mastodon at GetStrange42@universedon.com, and on Facebook, where you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch Podcast. Additionally, and if you're not sick of my voice by now, I also have a channel on Twitch TV. That's Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 PM GMT and Saturdays at 5 PM GMTV. It's called Adverse Camber 42, and I stream whatever I'm currently playing on PlayStation 5, which is currently Wolong Fallen Dynasty. I also have a separate Adverse Camber 42 YouTube channel, where old episodes go up, usually within a day of them streaming on Twitch, and where I'm also currently running a separate Let's Play, which is a silent stream with no commentary from me, of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, so please do check both of them out if you're interested.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsgettingstrange, where you can find all 5 parts of our Let's Play of the X-Files game, where we die repeatedly as we brute force our way through the Craig Wilmore simulator.
Hooray!
Hooray! And our review of Mulder and Scully by Catatonia. And next up will be Goblins by Charles Grant.
Which is the first of the adult novels.
Yep. And how are you finding it so far?
I'm maybe about a quarter of the way through it so far, and it's a bit slow to get started, but I guess we'll see as we go on.
That's fair. I need to get to it as well, so we can discuss it next time.
Mm.
Our theme music is envisioned by Kevin MacLeod. You can find it on Computech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember,
I can't be something I'm not.